Okay, go. Okay. Where we've got feedback. Okay, just testing. I think we're good to go. Apologies about that with a little bit of feedback. Actually, I'm not sure if we've still got a little bit of feedback here. Members online, how are you hearing that?
Right?
Yep. Done, yep.
You all hearing us loud and clear? Just one person?
I can hear you, no bother, John. Jason Barr here.
I know Butler, John.
No bother, John, here.
Right, I'm just going to pick one person off the list of people here online here. Dan Kelly, Councillor Kelly, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, John, I can hear you perfectly.
I can hear you too, John. Alderman Kerrigan.
Oh, Gallagher, Councillor Gallagher, can you hear us okay?
Yes. Yes, can. Yep.
Me too, John. Yes, can.
Yes, Paul Geller here.
Okay, just for a sound check, from those who are online, can somebody open their mic? Can I ask Councillor Kelly, could you open your mic and let us know that you can speak to us, Councillor Kelly? Because I can see you in the chat box, but we need to know if we can hear you, or indeed Councillor Logue.
Yes, Chair, my mic is open and I can hear you perfectly well. Hello?
Right. The situation seems to be that you can hear us, but we can't hear any of you. So we'll have to see if we can address that particular matter. Members, just bear with us here at this end. Thank you. Okay, appreciate that, Councillor Kelly. We're not hearing you guys, so if you could just bear with us here for a second to see if we can sort out the gremlins. Okay, I'm testing. 1, 2, 3. Mary had a little lamb. I'm assuming everybody out there can still hear us. So can I ask one member of the committee who's online now to try
John
to communicate
Barry.
with us?
Jason Barry here, John.
Who's that?
Jason Barry, can you hear me?
I hear you, Jason. That's good. That's great. We're starting to get there. Just a wee sound check. Alan, got you, Alan. Okay. Dan.
Dan here, John.
I think we're good. Okay. I'll work on the assumption that everybody else can be heard. If they can't, then obviously we'll come back and try and rectify that. But I think we're good to go. So, members, I'm going to ask again, Maura, to take the attendance and apologies. We've already had the notice of motion, so summons of motion or meeting. That flustered me there. Apologies. So, Maura, attendance and apologies.
Members are hereby summoned to attend the reconvened meeting of the Planning Committee 8th of June, from the 8th of June, which will be hybrid socially distanced meeting to be conducted remotely via WebEx and also physically in the chamber in the Guildhall on the Thursday, the 9th of June. Alderman Alan Breslin.
Here, Maura.
Thank you. Alderman Keith Kerrigan.
Here, Maura.
Thanks, Keith. Alderman Graham Ward sent his apologies. Councillor Jason Barr.
Yep, here, Maura.
Thanks, Jason. Councillor Raymond Barr sent apologies. Councillor John Boyle. Councillor Angela Dobbins. Angela sent apologies. I'm back. Councillor Paul Gallagher.
And Sean.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Christopher Jackson.
And Sean, Maura.
Thank you, Christopher. Councillor Dan Kelly. Councillor
Sean, Maura.
Kelly. Thank you. Councillor Patricia Logue.
And Sean Mora.
Thank you, Patricia. Councillor Kieran Maguire.
Sean.
Thank you, Kieran. Councillor Philip McKinney. Apologies. Councillor Sean Mooney.
Here.
Thank you. Just go back and double check with Angela Dobbins. Councillor Dobbins? No. The chair.
Councillor Dobbins was expecting, so perhaps she'll join us later. Okay, members, I'll move on. I will read out the broadcasting statement for the hybrid meeting. So again, I would like to remind everybody present at this meeting in the Guildhall and attendance remotely that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The broadcast may be terminated or indeed suspended in accordance with our protocol. Due to your attendance at this meeting, you're consenting to being filmed and to the use and storage of those images for broadcasting or training purposes and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have your microphones or cameras on whilst speaking at this meeting and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. So, moving to the next item, again, I will formally ask you for any declarations of members' interests. If you want to declare those now verbally, meeting, then of course we will accept a verbal declaration of interest at that juncture as well. So, members, moving on, and we will move to the next item in the running order. And the next item is item number, bear with me a second. Yep. So again, running order, members will be 8, 9, and 7. So the next item will be item number 8. Officer presenting item 8 is Suzanne.
Thanks, Chair. Okay, members, item 8 is LA 11 2021 08260. It's the outline application to provide a detached dwelling with garage, package treatment plant, and all associated site development works at site 40 metres east of 28 Woodside Road, Derry, and the recommendation is to refuse. So this overhead shows you the red line of the site. The site is the first application up today. The other remaining land in blue is the second application, 0827. And you can also see there just a satellite imagery of the overhead of the site. It's currently comprised of a concrete yard. Here are just some photos of the site the case officer took at the time of site visit. Fence and security fencing around the edge of it. It's slightly above road level. Good backdrop in terms of vegetation there, and a number of temporary portable trailers were on site at the time of the site visit. So this is the block plan submitted with the application. The block plan shows 2 sites, Site A, Site B, and Site A is currently the first one under consideration today. That's indicative siting. Obviously, this is an outline application that we're dealing with today. In terms of the existing character of the surrounding area, there are a number of existing dwellings along this stretch of Woodside Road in close proximity to the site. We have number 28, 30 and 32. 28 and 30 are semis, 32 detached, and then at the end of 32 there, you can just see there's another dwelling, number 34. So in terms of the policy context today, there are no objections to this application. The policy context is set out there on your screens and as also noted in detail in your reports. And consultee responses, there's been no issues really raised other than with the Department of Infrastructure Roads Department. They're seeking visibility displays of 2.4 by 100 metres and third-party land is required. The amended P2 certificate would be required to provide those visibility displays. So looking at the policy context of this application, the supporting information submitted by Mr. Matt Kennedy on behalf of the applicant basically centred around the fact that the concrete yard, they feel, meets the definition of a building as set out in the Planning Act. And in the Planning Act, that is a wide definition. It includes any structure or erection and any part of a building as so defined, but does not include plant or machinery comprising a building. The agents also stating that a new replacement dwelling would bring significant environmental benefits in terms of visual amenity, general amenity and residential amenity. Just trying to... So there is definition of a building within the Planning Act, but I think it's important, members, to note that there's other planning legislation that defines a building slightly differently. And for example, in the permitted development, the general permitted development order, it actually provides a narrower interpretation. For example, it excludes gates, walls, fences from that definition of a building. And also then looking at what we are required to deal with today in terms of the application. The Planning Act does require us to deal with application in accordance with the local development plan and any other material consideration. Obviously, the Derry Area Plan has no specific guidance on rural dwellings. That is contained now within PPS 21. That is a material consideration today. PPS 21 does not provide a definition of a building for the policies that are contained within it. It does refer to replacement dwellings, and planning permission will be granted for a replacement dwelling where the building to be replaced exhibits all the essential characteristics of a dwelling, and as a minimum, all external structure and walls are substantially intact. For the purposes of this policy, all references to dwellings will include buildings previously used as dwellings. So this policy text indicates that the replacement of dwellings and buildings that have walls, roof and a roof does not include or refer to the replacement of any structure that might fall into the definition of a building. And in fact, in the amplification of CTY3, it talks about, you know, that the replacement of existing dwellings is important to the renewal and upgrading of rural housing stock. There's no reference to any other structures and how their importance should be weighed into the replacement of existing and, you know, the creation of new housing stock in the countryside. Looking at the supplementary planning guidance, it does have a section on replacement dwellings and guides the site and design and scale and form of new development, but there's no reference to the replacement of anything other than a dwelling or a building with walls and a roof or something that's substantially intact. So, as CTY3 does not consider any structure, any part of a building as referred to in the Act as an appropriate building for the purposes of applying policy CTY3, the fact that something's been erected on land is not sufficient to make it a building for the purposes of CTY3. And in this case, officers recommend that the proposal does not constitute a replacement building. Looking also at the regional guidance in the SPPS, it does provide guidance on replacement dwellings. Again, looking at, you know, the essential characteristics of a dwelling, but there's no specific direction on the replacement of redundant non-residential buildings or structures, as this case may be. So the hard standing, it's a concrete yard, there is a fence. It doesn't meet CTY3 and consequently it can't meet CTY1 of PPS 21. There's no other evidential context that has been provided to us from which we can consider the principle of a dwelling on this site. Looking at the other policy tests within PPS 21, although this is an outline application, it's not considered a new building would appear prominent, and we feel that, you know, you saw the backdrop there in terms of vegetation. We feel it would meet CTY 13. Looking at the ribbon development and rural character policies, CTY 8 and CTY 14, it's quite clear the proposal sits at the end of an existing ribbon of development. So therefore it would add to that ribbon of development, and therefore CTY 8 advises that permission should be refused. The proposal is not a gap site within any existing substantial and built up frontage, so there's no exception there to consider it as a gap site. Therefore, it would add to urban development, and looking as well at CTY 14 would result in a suburban style of build-up of development and further erode the rural character of the area, contrary to CTY 8 and CTY 14. In terms of the roads issue, roads are looking for quite high splays, 2.4 by 150 metres, and those will require third-party lands. Notice should be served on the relevant landowners. There has been a bit of a challenge that with the agent considers that given they feel that the existing structure on the site is lawful, and that there's, that a dwelling would generate less vehicles. I mean, what I would say there from a professional planning point of view is that there has been no lawful development certified on the site. There is operational development in the form of the hard standing and the fence, and then there's obviously a change of use in terms of what that hard standing is used for. In the past, we have had enforcement on the site in terms of car sales, and I think quite recently there has been some activity in relation to tyres on the site, but those are separate. But just to be clear, there's no lawful certificate that has been granted, and that itself, members would require a separate determination. There is a process, there's a fee, there's a determination, and there's a right of appeal on those as well. Therefore, that is not something we would weigh in terms of, for example, a fallback position at this stage in terms of the site or the access. Therefore, unfortunately, we've had to put on recommend refusal on PPS 3 as well. In terms of flood risk, there's no major issues. It is the developer's responsibility. And in terms of PPS 2, it's considered the proposal shall not adversely impact upon any priority species or habitats. And there's no issues in terms of residential amenity. So in summary, having considered all the material considerations, the development plan, the relevant policies, the consultation responses, refusal is recommended as a proposal contrary to CTY 1, 3, 8 and 14 of PPS 21 and AMP 2 of PPS 3 as per the refusal reasons below. Now, just in terms of some late information that will have previously been circulated to you yesterday and today, the agent has submitted four photographs of the site. The first one there, taken in 2009, you can see a van and some trailers and stuff being stored on the site. The second one, 2011. The third one is 2012. And that last one is 2016. That is the site as of December 2021. And the agent then today, now I haven't scanned it, haven't had a chance to scan it on PowerPoint, but it has been circulated to you. The agent has submitted their own photograph today, taken in April 2022, which shows the grass verge being completely cleared of vegetation. And I would just bring that to your attention for your consideration and any determination today. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. I do have the agent with us here, Matt Kennedy, but however, before I move over to Matt, I'm just going to clarify with all of you that you received the most recent photographs as referenced by Suzanne there. If anybody didn't, can you now indicate that you didn't? And are you all content that you have seen those most recent late items that would have arrived this morning, I believe? If I don't hear anybody or don't see anybody in the chat box, I'm content to move. So I'll give it a second. Councillor Kelly, you're saying you've received them. So is it fair to work on the assumption that everybody's seen those photographs? All right. Haven't heard anything back from anybody. Okie dokes. So okay, members. Right. it would appear everybody's seen those photographs from this morning. Thank you very much. Matt, you're very welcome. Sorry for the delay, and obviously thanks for your patience yesterday. So again, Matt, you've got an opportunity to present to the committee. I'm sure I don't need to remind you, but the clock does tick and it is 5 minutes. Okay, so whenever you're ready, Matt.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Thanks for the opportunity to address the Planning Committee on this planning application. The application site comprises an existing concreted commercial yard defined by a rusty barbed wire fence, visually unsightly concrete pillars, a metal gate, and a vehicular access onto Woodside Road. This commercial yard has been used for the storage of motor vehicles, shipping containers, and trailers at this location for over 20 years. In support of this, I've supplied photographs of the application site from Google Street View, which you've just looked at, from April 2009 to April 2022. I believe these images have all been shared with you too as well, and they indicate commercial use on the site for the last 13 years. These images clearly show that the existing concrete yard and the access point on the Woodside Road have been in place for a lot more than the statutory 5-year period and is now immune from enforcement. This application is for the replacement of this commercial yard and is submitted on the basis of the planning gain that will be generated by the removal of this yard. This yard is visually unsightly and adjoins existing residential properties. Its operation and appearance clearly adversely impacts on the adjoining dwellings. The removal of this commercial use will clearly be in the public interest. In terms of the consultee responses, I note that DFI Rivers has stated the development is located partially within an area affected by surface water. However, the only area within the application site affected by surface water is actually the far side of the actual Woodside Road, which the applicant has provided within the red line to allow the provision of visibility space. So the actual yard is not actually affected by any flooding. I also note that DFI Roads have confirmed that if the site is immune from enforcement, Roads would have no objection to the use of this commercial site for a single dwelling. Therefore, on the basis of this, the applicant has now instructed myself to only pursue at Planning Committee one of the sites, which would be planning application LA11 2021 08270, which is Site B, which is the next one up, which is the site closest to number 28. The applicant is happy to withdraw this site, Site A, as part of parcel of this application. This proposal brings significant environmental benefits in terms of improving visual amenity through the replacement of a visually unsightly concrete yard, rusty metal fence, pillars and gates, and improving the residential amenity of adjoining residential property. As this is an outlined planning application for approval in principle, any matters of siting, design, materials, and finishing can be conditioned to be resolved at reserved matters. Chair, I don't intend to get into the legislation. I don't think it's really the case or the opportunity. This is the venue for that. Really, what I would say is just in terms of the policy and in terms of policy CTY1. Policy CTY1 talks about uses which are acceptable in principle and which would contribute to the aims of sustainable development. I would argue that the removal and the replacement of this commercial yard by one dwelling is in line with policy CT1 and in line with the aims of sustainable development. Policy CTY1 also states are the reasons why the development is essential. I would say that they are in terms of the replacement of an existing commercial yard. Could it not be located in a settlement? No, it has to be the location where it stands, and it's not otherwise allocated for development in the development plan. So I would argue that the proposal is in accordance with policy CT1. It is an exception on the basis that it provides planning gain, that it improves residential amenity, visual amenity, and the general amenity of the area. So therefore, I would ask that and respectfully request that the Planning Committee consider reversing this decision and recommend approval. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Matt. Thanks for that, Matt. I'm a little bit confused, so bear with me. It sounded like you were talking about withdrawing an application Can you clear that up? Not simply for me actually, but for members of the committee as well. Because we've two applications in front of us, which are number 7 and number 8 in the packs of members, Matt. So just for clarity, so we can understand where you're coming from in relation to this.
Yes, Chair. There's two applications. There's a Site A and there's a Site B. This application is Site A, which is the one furthest away from number 28. The next application up is the one which is Site B, which is closest to number 28. I'm proposing that we would withdraw this application, which is Site A, the one furthest away, and that the council would consider approving Site B, which is the next one up. So I'm asking that the two applications be considered together because of it's actually the same site. And you have to consider the site in its totality. To take a decision on one without considering the implications for the other wouldn't make sense. And I believe that, one of the requirements in terms of trying to develop this site is that there's environmental benefits as a result of the redevelopment. So the redevelopment would involve the redevelopment of the entire site, would deal comprehensively with the extent of the existing site, because the applicant's in control and ownership of it all. And I would like to see that it would actually reduce the actual size of the site, because our application red line for that Site B that we're considering and proposing to take forward is actually half the size of Site A. So actually what you'd be getting...
Matt, sorry for interrupting. I was looking for a fairly straightforward answer to a fairly straightforward question. Can I ask you which one of these two applications you're withdrawing? Is it LA 11 2021 0826 or is it LA 11 2021 0827
0826, sir.
08260. So you're withdrawing that today?
Yes.
Okay, Matt. Well then, we don't need to go any further with that particular application. You've formally withdrawn it from our agenda today, and so therefore we will move directly to your next application, which is LA 11 2021 0827. Can you just bear with me 1 second, Matt? Because again, we're now going to have to hear an officer report, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, members, so next application, number 9 in your pack, LA 11 2021 0827 or 0827. And again, I'm just going to ask Suzanne to present the report in relation to this particular application. So, Suzanne, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Chair. I'm just sharing the screen now. Okay, so the next item is item number 9, LA 11 2021 08270. And this again is the outline application to provide a detached dwelling and garage, package treatment plant and all associated site development works on a site adjacent northeast of 28 Woodside Road. So this is a site, members, outlined in red. So it is the sort of the southwestern portion of a large concrete hard standing adjacent to numbers 28, 30, 32 and 34 Woodside Road, road frontage site. Again, members, those are the properties along the road. You'll be familiar with that now. And those are photos of the site taken at the time the case officer visited the site. You can see it's quite a lot of vegetation there along the front of the yard in terms of the security fence. This is this proposed site layout. This site was proposed as Site B, was proposed closest to number 28 Woodside Road. And in terms of the policy context, that's listed for you members and also considered in detail in your report. And the consultee responses, there's no issues. However, there is the issue with DFI Roads who are seeking third-party land for 2.4 by 150 metre visibility displays. That would require the P2. However, that was at the time that there were 2 applications under consideration here. But that's the information, the latest information we have on the file. In terms of the policy, again, Planning Act requires us to look at it under the development plan and any other material considerations, which is PPS 21. And the agent's case, which was submitted on the 6th of April 2022, solely related around the fact that the proposal and the concrete yard constituted a building. There's no other comments or supporting information in relation to you know, any suitable the proposal fall into any other suitable policy. And it does state that because the proposal complies with CTY 3, the agent feels it complies with CTY 1. There is some reference to the fact that it is on an existing commercial yard, but members, just to be clear, there is no lawful development that has been certified on this site. That is a separate process. It does require a separate fee, does have a decision and can be appealed. So there's nothing today that we would be advising members in terms of fallback that are relevant to this site. Again, obviously, you know, there had been some debate about the definition of a building and if it went as far as CTY 3. But as I've stated previously, CTY 3 does not define buildings, and the whole implementation of CTY 3 centres around the fact, you know, of buildings that have walls and a roof or that are substantially intact, and that is the test. And obviously, the whole ethos of CTY 3 is to actually replace existing dwellings and upgrade the rural housing stock, as well as some other appropriate economic uses in the countryside if possible, if necessary. The supplementary guidance doesn't bring up anything else in terms of the replacement of yards or fencing that are considered as buildings. Therefore, we have had a, you know, we could only reasonably logically conclude that the proposal does not constitute a replacement building. The SPPS does not direct any more specifically on the matter other than what we have referred to in PPS 21. So therefore, as officers, we feel it doesn't meet CTY 3, doesn't meet CTY 1, does meet CTY 13 because it does have an acceptable level of integration. However, because this site extends and adds to an existing ribbon of development, and CTY 8 is very clear in those circumstances, it advised that permission should be refused. And although there is substantially continuously built up frontage and a ribbon of development to the south, the proposal is not a gap site within that frontage, and therefore there would be no, it wouldn't be reasonable to conclude that that would be a possible route to achieving a dwelling on this site. So we've concluded it adds to ribbon. It's going to create in the road detrimentally alter the rural character, so it's contrary to PPS 21. There are issues in terms of the access still to be resolved, that it would require third-party lands. No other issues in terms of flooding, natural heritage or residential amenity have been raised and nothing that we had considered in the policy as officers. Therefore, on balance, we've considered all the information, the plan, the policies, the consultations, and we're recommending refusal under CTY 1, 3, 8 and 14 of PPS 21 and AMP 2 of PPS 3. Thank you. And again, sorry, members, just flag up the 4 photos that were submitted as late information yesterday, which show the site over a period of time. And then again, the recent one that was circulated today showing the site in April 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne, and members. And again, I'm assuming that the question I asked in relation to the photographs the last time still stands. Those are the same photographs I was asking you about. So, again, we will now be hearing from Matt Kennedy, who's the agent, keeping with protocol, Matt. So, again, I invite you to present to the committee in relation to LA 11 2021 08270. So, over to you, Matt.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, could I request that Suzanne would pull up, I think it's slide 5, which shows Site A and Site B on the screen, please?
Just bear with us here, Matt. We're trying to find it.
Yes, that's it there. Thank you,
Okay,
Suzanne.
Matt. Okay, Matt, work away.
Okay. Sorry. Cheers. Chair, if you and the councillors could have a look at that, what we have proposed is that we would withdraw Site A. So Site A is now gone. So we're simply considering now Site B, which is the one closest to number 28. Really, in terms of extension of the frontage, Chair, we're proposing that Site A is now done away with, and it'll be redeveloped and it'll be done in terms of in grass. So the concrete plant would be removed, the concrete yard would be taken away, the gates would be taken away, and therefore I'm arguing that on the basis of planning gain that will be generated by the removal of this concrete yard. So we'd only be developing Site B, but we'd be redeveloping Site A as part and parcel of this application as it's land within our ownership and control. And we'd be redeveloping that, and that would simply become a grassed lawn area. So I'm arguing that this yard is visually unsightly. It adjoins existing residential properties. Its operation and appearance adversely affects on the existing dwellings and the countryside, and the removal of this yard will clearly be in the public interest. So from that point of view, I'm arguing that there's no extension of the frontage because the existing yard has a frontage which extends across by both Site B and Site A. So I'm actually pulling in the frontage and removing the built-up frontage. So I'm actually reducing what's already there and what's existing, and I'm taking it away, and I'm actually returning it to the countryside. Site B will be a developed site. Conditions can be imposed on that in terms of its height, its scale, its density, and its landscaping. But I believe that this proposal will bring significant environmental benefits in terms of improving visual amenity through its replacement of this concrete yard. So on that basis, I am suggesting that the Planning Committee approve this on the basis of planning gain and environmental improvement. And I'm arguing that in terms of policy CTY1, its aim is to contribute to the aims of sustainable development. I would argue that this proposal is sustainable. It's taken away a commercial yard and it's replacing it with one dwelling. It'd be more in keeping and more in character with the surrounding area. And therefore, I would argue that it's also a good reason to do it. So therefore, I don't have anything further, Chair.
Okay, Matt, thank you very much for that. That's useful. All right. Members, if any of you have any questions for Mr. Kennedy, please do indicate now. Obviously in the chamber or in the chat box. No questions from members to you, Matt. So thanks for that. Members, I'm going to open it up now, the opportunity to address the officers here. So if any of you have any questions, can you indicate now? Councillor Kelly.
Sorry, Chair, my question was for the agent.
Apologies, Dan, that didn't come up in the chat box. So, okay, I roll it back a bit. Matt, Councillor Kelly would like to address a question to you. Go ahead, Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Chair. I suppose I have two questions really. One is in relation to the issue of ponding, and you've mentioned about removing the concrete yard and grassing that area over. So I wonder, I mean, obviously that will increase, significantly increase the permeability of that particular site. I couldn't understand the issue of ponding given the elevated nature of the site, but I'm glad you clarified that it's actually on the road. But maybe would you just address the issue of the increased permeability of the site and if that would have an impact then on the road? And the other question is, I'm not wholly persuaded on the argument of ribbon development, given that this is a developed site. So I wonder, would you just pick up on the issue of CTY8? My reading of the policy is adds to or creates, whereas this is effectively redevelopment of a site in my, as I'm looking at it. So I wonder, could you pick up on that issue? Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Over to you, Matt.
Okay, thanks for the question, Councillor Kelly. I looked at the flood maps, Northern Ireland, in terms of surface water, and there is surface water indicated, but it's on the opposite side of the Woodside Road. There's a small line that indicates surface water lying on the opposite side of the Woodside Road. So there's no issue in terms of flooding in relation to the sites, but there appears to be some sort of ponding that happens on the road on particular occasions. This is a concrete yard. The permeability of that yard is very, very poor at the minute. So really what happens is that any runoff is running off that site very quickly and coming out onto the public road. I don't think it actually contributes to the ponding that's on the opposite side of the road. I would have thought that any runoff from this site would have resulted in ponding on this side of the road. So I don't think it's this site is actually causing the ponding, Councillor. But certainly I would have thought that if we're reducing the concreted area and taking away and making the site more permeable, there would be more likely for runoff to be absorbed within the application site rather than running off a concreted yard very, very quickly onto the roadside. So I'd argue that this application, in terms of sustainability, would improve the permeability and reduce any runoff onto the Woodside Road. So that's that point. In terms of the second point, in terms of ribbon development, I would argue, and I would agree with yourself in terms of your interpretation of policy CTY8, because my interpretation of policy CTY8 is we are not adding to or extending a ribbon. There already is a built concrete yard with gates, concrete pillars, and a visually unsightly barbed wire fence here. And what we are doing is that we are actually reducing the length of that frontage by pulling it in and only developing site B and taking development away from site A. So what we're doing is actually reducing the length of the frontage, and we're actually reducing the extent of the frontage. So I would argue that we're not in breach of policy CTY8 and that what we're doing is actually in accordance with it.
Thank you, Matt. You content with those answers, Councillor Kelly?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, that's useful.
Okay, and that's everything from you? Yeah. Okay. Any other members wish to address any questions to Mr. Kennedy? If not, I'll open up the, thanks for that, Matt. I'll open up to any questions to officers, members. And again, no questions to officers, albeit the head of planning would like to address a couple of matters in relation to that. So I'll give more of the floor for now.
Thank you, Chair. Members, it's important for me to point out that the application site that you're now dealing with, the red line, is really the only proposal that you have in front of you. Any verbal comments in regards to the rest of the land around that site is not a proposal in front of us today. So in terms of commentary about frontages and how that site will be potentially redeveloped is a matter for another application. So what we've got is the Site B only with the red line around that. And that's what members have now before them in terms of what the consideration is in terms of the current policy. So it's just important to focus on that and not commentary in and around any potential future application or change of use or changes to walls or railings or whatever. So it's just important to clarify. I think maybe Suzanne has a few points to clarify as well in regards to the changes. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, so just to clarify, members, so a revised proposal has really been presented today following my presentation to you, and that revised proposal is for one dwelling on Site B. The current plans submitted as part of this application would require to be updated. And also I would remind members that the roads issue, the certificate of ownership, remains unresolved. Again, would have to be reconsidered, and we would, so that, I mean, obviously this is just as a result of the revised proposal and the revised scheme being tabled today during Planning Committee.
Chair, can I just ask, are we still live or?
We are, Councillor Dobbins. I'm just taking some advice from the city solicitor, so if you could just bear with me, please. Okay, members, apologies for the delay. I felt it appropriate to take some advice from the city solicitor on your behalf, and I'm now going to ask the city solicitor to present what he's just told me for your consideration.
Thank you, members, and apologies for the time that has been taken discussing this, but I don't actually think we've found ourselves in quite this position before, so we did just need to discuss it. Obviously, members, the application that appears in the papers before you today is recommended for refusal. That's an option which is available to members, but what is being proposed by the agent today is not what is in the papers in front of you. And therefore, members, if it would not be possible for us to bring this forward or for members to put forward what is being proposed by the agent today as an approval, because it is not in front of you. Members may wish, therefore, to indicate that they would be minded to defer this application and ask the agent to resubmit this application or amend this application in line with what is being proposed today. Obviously, members, that doesn't apply if members are of the view, similar to officers, that the matter is contrary to planning policy and should just be refused on its merits today. But it certainly could not come forward as an application for approval today, members.
Thank you for that, Philip, and thanks for bringing that clarity to it. I have a couple of indicated speakers in the chat box, so I'll go to Councillor Jackson first.
Thanks, Chair. And I suppose one of the questions that I had was to request a legal opinion on what options are in front of us, and thanks, Philip, for outlining those. But I'm going to ask again a more specific question. What we have in front of us is an outline application, and it's my understanding that an outline application establishes the principle of development on the site. Now, notwithstanding that further details are required, would it be appropriate for this committee to establish the principle of development at this site and allow the further details to be presented during a reserved matters application? Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jackson. Before I get that answer for you, I'm going to invite Councillor Dobbins to put forward whatever it is that she wanted to ask. Go ahead, Angela.
Yeah, because I had a question because I did not understand exactly what I was going to be voting on. I find this very confusing, but I appreciate what Philip has just said. And whilst I am mindful of doing that, what Philip had suggested there, due to defer to a later date until all the facts and the proper drawings, and because we can't make a decision on a refusal when we haven't got the full information to merit that decision. And so, but I'm interested to hear what Philip would on Councillor Jackson's question there. I'm interested to hear what the answer is.
Thank you, Councillor Dobbins. You content to take those questions now, Philip, if you want?
Yeah, I'm content certainly to deal with the issue that Councillor Jackson has raised. I think this goes beyond the issue of principle of development on this site, because obviously what the agent is putting before us today deals with matters on the principle of development on the site, which then extend beyond the red line of this particular site, dealing with issues in and around frontage, dealing with issues in and around matters in terms of the regeneration of the site that sits outside of the red line, exactly the issues that Ms. Fox outlined earlier on in the matter. And obviously any conditions that are attached to an outline planning permission, those are the conditions. We can't introduce fresh conditions at a reserved matter. We would be asking effectively to consider a reserved matters application in future in respect of reserved matters, in respect of an application which isn't an outline application, which isn't before this committee today.
Right. I'm going to take it upon myself, members. I'm fairly sure you all understand the situation, but just so as we're all clear, the only thing that could happen today with this application would be that it would be refused. It could not be approved. Did everybody catch that? So what the city solicitor is effectively saying here is that, bear with me, getting a bit of feedback here. So effectively, what the city solicitor is saying is that the only thing that could be done today would be a refusal, and we couldn't approve. So I'm passing it back over to you.
Chair, I'm in the box there.
Sorry, Angela, could you say that again?
I've put it in the box. I'm actually happy to propose a deferral to a later date, that all relevant information be put in front of us. I think it would be totally unfair to vote for a refusal when we don't have the facts in front of us. So yeah, I'm happy to propose a deferral, a short deferral now, so that that the proper information that we would need to give this application be presented to us in entirety. Okay, thank you.
Okay, guys, I appreciate that. Members, Councillor Dobbins is proposing a deferral. I'm terribly sorry, guys, but I'm having all manner of IT issues coming at me all over the place. So Angela's proposing a deferral. I can see Councillor Jackson, you want to come back in again, so go ahead, Christopher.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. On the basis that I don't support the recommendation to refuse. So on that basis, I'm content to second the proposal to defer. But I just want a bit of clarity because I know Angela did make the point around the short deferral. Would it be appropriate and realistic to request that this be presented to July's planning committee? Thanks, Chair.
You know, thanks. That's a very useful question, Councillor Jackson, and I'm going to ask Suzanne what she reasonably thinks would be possible.
Thanks, Chair. I think Councillor Jackson, because of the amended plans that have to be updated, we will also have to go back to the department, DFI Roads, look at the access details. We would not be able to meet the timelines that are required from committee section for the 6th of July.
Okay, so I think based on that answer, Councillor Jackson, I'm assuming that you, like I, will have figured this is again one of those pieces of string. We don't know how long it might be because obviously we would have as council officers, those consultations would have to be carried out again. However, notwithstanding that, are you content with that answer, Councillor Jackson?
Yes, Chair. I'm content to continue to second the proposal. To defer, but I would be keen to see this application returned to the committee at the earliest possible opportunity. But without being prescriptive, but at the very least September, and that's but I fully accept that there's some elements of this could be outside of our hands.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dobbins, and thank you, Councillor Jackson. So, members, we have a proposal from Councillor Dobbins, seconded by Councillor Jackson, that we will defer a decision in relation to this application to come back before us at a date unknown. So, unless I see anybody indicate in the chat box that they don't support that, then I am working on the assumption that you are all content to proceed on that basis. Councillor Gallagher, thank you. Councillor Gallagher agrees with that. No other commentary to the contrary. Okay, members, I'll consider that deferred and we'll move on with the next application. Thank you, Matt, for again coming along and presenting today. and we'll take it from here. You know what you have to do. Okay, thank you. Okay, members, apologies for the gremlins in the works today, but I'm sure you get it. Right, final application is LA 11 2020 0869F. And that's application number 7 in your packs. And again, thanks to Malachy for his patience, and I'll pass it straight over to you, Malachy.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Item 7 is LA 11 2020 0869F. It's a full planning application for a proposed community centre, including social area, offices, changing rooms, toilets, stores, plant room, and meeting rooms, with amendments to the layout of the existing car park, provision of compound of 2 number 1-ton LPG tanks and secure bin store. And the application is located at Culmore Country Park, lands within and adjoining existing car parking area, which is located at Coney Road, Culmore, and the recommendation is to approve. The next time it shows the application location. The application site is outlined in red, is within the existing country park, which has been established since 2007. You'll be aware it's a former landfill site, which has been successfully converted into a country park with associated walkways and car parking area. So the red line is primarily the access road off Coney Road around to the existing car parking area, and a small area of grassland to the north of the existing car parking area. And the overhead image will give you an idea of where the existing car park is. As I say, the application also encompasses the green area just to the north of the car park. Some images of the site at present at the car parking area. Here's a proposed block plan layout of the application site. So the application is at the car parking area, and the building just to the north here is there under consideration. And here's the proposed elevations of the community centre and the floor plans, which on the ground floor is primarily changing rooms and a social area. And there is a first floor element with some meeting rooms. The policy context is set out before you. SPPS, the area plan, PPS 2 given the location of the application, PPS 3 in relation to access, parking and movement, and PPS 8 given the current use of the site, PPS 15 owing to the location of the site, PPS 21 as the site is outside the development limits, and DCAN 15 relating to vehicular access standards and building on tradition. In terms of consultee responses, NA Water have no objection. Standard informatives have been provided. Historic Environment Division have no objection. DFI Roads, no objections, subject to standard conditions. NIEA Natural Environment Division were provided with a breeding bird survey, a preliminary ecological assessment, and a HRA. These have been considered. NID are content with the proposal and have provided conditions and informatives. Water Management Unit have no objections, subject to a condition regarding the submission of a construction method statement. Land Regulation Units and Groundwater Team have no objections, subject to conditions relation to environmental piling risk assessment and contamination. DFI Rivers, no objections. Environmental Health Department have no objections. Conditions including submission of a construction environment management plan regarding construction hours, waste arrangement informative, on-site water management, plant room, clean neighbourhoods, and Environmental Act waste and radon informatives have been recommended also. We've consulted shared environmental services as the site is in close proximity to protected sites terms of ramsars and sacks has been assessed against the relevant habitats regulations. And it's been concluded and accepted by officers that it would not have an adverse effect on the integrity of any European site, either alone or in combination with all our plans and projects. And they've recommended that subject to the submission of a construction environment management plan, or a SEMP. There have been 4 objections received from residents in the nearby Coney Road. The objections are set out in a report, and the response of the officers are detailed in the report. Primarily deal with traffic to and from the Colmore Country Park, the proximity of the use to farmyards, the requirement for a community centre. There's a belief that it should be located within Colmore, or perhaps if there's already existing facilities and there's not a need. And then the potential for extra noise and antisocial behaviour. And again, just a change in the character of the park itself. As I say, that's been detailed in the report, our response to each of those. Policy consideration in terms of PPS 8, it is an existing recreational area that's been recently created. So Policy OS 1, protection of open space, would apply. So that PPS OS 1 aims to protect existing open space. Stating that development would result in the loss of existing open space will not be permitted, and the presumption will apply irrespective of its physical condition and appearance. However, OS 1 permits an exception to this policy where it is clearly shown that the redevelopment will bring substantial community benefits that outweigh the loss of the open space. Summary of statements submitted by the applicant shows that a survey demonstrates the proposal is supported by the local community. It is community's view that the community centre will benefit local people and groups and acts as a social hub for the development of worthwhile activities and community cohesion. A consideration was given to the impact on the amenity, character and biodiversity of the area and the wider locality, and takes into account the need of future generations. There were no issues brought forward by the community or by any stakeholders regarding the loss of the open space and the effect on biodiversity or character of the area during the consultation process. The proposal will utilise existing access and parking areas, though the parking area will be reconfigured. The new facility will occupy a very small portion of the country park, so it will provide a much needed community resource for the local community. Therefore, it's considered an exception as it will be a substantial community benefit that would outweigh the loss of a very small amount of open space within the park. In terms of the design of the proposal, there's also consideration. The design and finish of the building is typical that used for modern community facilities and is appropriate to the character of the site. There's no issues in terms of residential amenity. The building scale, site and design are appropriate to the context of surroundings and complies with ASPPS and CTY 13. It also respects rural character given the context of the site. As I say, the development will be accessed from the existing access. There will be 58 car parking spaces provided. I think it's an addition of 6 spaces above what's there at the minute. DFA Roads have no objections to the proposal regarding the access or the reconfigured car park, or in terms of the impact of any additional traffic in terms of road safety. Suppose just worth saying too in relation to DFA Roads that the application site will be served if developed by the new greenway, so there will be improved access to the site for non-motorised users via the new greenway, which will go along the Coney Road at the entrance of the site, the Colmore Country Park. The site is not within a floodplain. A drainage assessment was provided. Rivers accepted the drainage report's conclusions. in terms of contaminated land. We've consulted Environmental Health Department in terms of human health and NIA in terms of any potential risk to the water. Both of opinion that commensurates should be considered, that an adequate assessment of risk should be submitted. This would be a fairly standard condition in relation to contamination. So that has been provided by both bodies, EHD and NIA. In terms of piling, given the former use of a site, that they've confirmed that any piling operations undertaken at the site will not pose any risks that would introduce preferential pathways and cause a migration of any groundworks. EHD have considered all our issues, including noise, vibration, dust, during and construction phase, and have also recommended a condition in relation to the operational areas. Natural heritage, the site is in close proximity to Ramsar and SAC sites at Loch Foyle. We have consulted NED. There has been environmental reports submitted as outlined earlier, and a habitats regulation assessment has been also carried out by SES. These have been found to be adequate, and NED are content. The HRA has found that the site will have no significant adverse impact on the protected sites or their features. So in conclusion, officers are of belief that this is a positive community-based proposal which will enhance the existing facilities provided at Colmore Country Park. They will substantially benefit both the surrounding rural population and the population of the nearby settlement of Colmore. And these benefits will outweigh the fairly small loss of open space within the existing park. Having considered the proposal against the relevant planning policies and all the objections and all material considerations, approval is recommended, subject to conditions, so as well as the standard conditions. I just want to bring to your attention that there's a number of non-standard conditions. I'll just leave them up here on the screen here, but they really relate to the contamination, the details that will be involved also with the construction environment management plan. So what sort of details will be looking for that? And also there is a number of non-standard conditions relating to the time of year that works could be carried out because of breeding birds in close proximity to the Colmore Country Park. I'll be happy to take any questions on those if needs be. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you very much, Malachy. Members have two indicated speakers in the order. So Councillor Dobbins, I'll take you first, and then Councillor Logal, go to you after Councillor Dobbins. There are no speakers to address the matter in front of us, so go ahead, Angela.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, look, I was gobsmacked when I seen this on the agenda. It has been so long that this community centre is drawn, going back from pillar to post and pillar to post, and sitting on capital projects, you know, for such a long time now. I can't even count the years. And I'm really happy with all the constructions regarding the environmental issues, with the wildlife and the birds, etc. For there to be a construction environmental plan shows, you know, that thought has been put into that environment, and those that are protected, the wildlife especially that is protected, and the fauna down there. Being a local resident, we have really tried our best, you know, to keep it in that way, but a community centre is what's needed in a place of high deprivation, both those play parks and play provision and recreational provision. We're so limited, so therefore, you know, I would like, this is up for approval, and I would like to propose that. It may be too early if there's any other questions, but if there's no questions, I would like to propose that we go ahead. I'm really happy with the road safety. I do remember, actually, this is even before I was a councillor, and I'm 11 years a councillor now. Before I was a councillor, sitting on the consultation with regard what we were going to do with the initial dump, as it was known as then, the landfill site, and what we should do with it, and the aspirations like were so huge. And okay, we've come now to where we have green fields and winding paths and a nature reserve and everything else. There's nothing else on it. It is a bit bleak. There's nowhere even to stand on out of the rain. Now, so therefore a development such as a community centre was always on the plans here with play provision and pitches and things like that, but that's for further discussions with all our departments. But the community centre is yeah, I just I can't really put into words exactly what it means and what it will mean for the people down there. Now, looking at the plans are, in my view, not fit for purpose. Too many meeting rooms. There's no hall. Like any other community centre has got a hall, that children or our youth, could play basketball or even badminton or something like that, or just run about them. But I'm sure that the internal works can be amended further down the line, with obviously consultation with the Culmore Community Partnership, who are overarching and will be heavily involved with this. But with the EHD and NIEA very much involved, I'm happy with all those conditions. You couldn't, I say, list them out. You want to protect your wildlife, you want to protect the environment, and most of all, you want to protect this natural habitat. It is out there, it's on the periphery of Culmore. The roads department at that time had said that they would, and I have this in writing, that they would upgrade the footpath and put in street lighting that would be appropriate to people and families going to community facilities. So therefore, you know what, we're getting there, and it's been a long time coming, Chair, and I'm sure you can hear the emotion, but yeah, I'm happy to propose approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dobbins. I was fairly sure I knew where you were going with that at the end, of course. So thanks for the proposal. Councillor Logue.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair, and thank you to Malachy for presenting this. I don't have any questions as such, other than I would like to second the proposal that we accept this recommendation. But like Councillor Dobbins, while it is not my area that I represent, I certainly am very much aware that it is an area that needs a community hall, and this is an example where the loss of open space can be very positive to the community that it serves, provided that all other mitigation factors are put in. I do want to say, and I know I stand to be corrected, but I heard Councillor Dobbin say this was an area of high deprivation, and while I agree, everybody is feeling the pinch now regarding the cost of living, I don't think Culmore is classed as an area of high deprivation. Nevertheless, standing that, every area deserves a community centre, a meeting place, and a place for young people to go meet, not just young people, but all residents of the community. So I'm very glad that this application has come to the planning committee today, and it's another step forward of getting this community centre, which is very much needed in that area. Thank you.
Again, thank you, Councillor Logue. Again, as chair of the committee, I completely concur with both of you. Very much needed. A long time in arriving, but here we are, and very welcome in my view. However, can I ask if there are any other speakers at this point? If there aren't, I will consider that if I don't see any objections in the chat box or indeed here in the chamber, that we have a unanimous support for the approval of this application. I think we can consider that a unanimous, members. So thank you again to Councillor Dobbins and Councillor Logue. Okay, members, we'll move along to the next item on the agenda. It's item number 9 in your packs, and it's the trans-boundary consultation from DFI Wind Farms. And Andre, are you online? Yeah, I see you there, Annalise. So Andre, I'll pass it over to you.
Hi, thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. So the purpose of the report is just to advise members that the Council has received a consultation from DFI Planning, and it's in relation to a transboundary application. So the application is being dealt with by Ambor Planala. It is located in Donegal. The proposal is for a wind farm development to include the construction of 15 turbines, which have a tip height in the range of 162 metres to 173 metres. So the application site is located kind of in an elevated landscape midway between Quigley's Point and the east of to the east of Inishowen and Buncrana to the west. And it will be visible from parts of our district, mainly in and around the Derry City location. So DFI request that the Council would advise of any comments they wish to make in relation to the proposed development, and officers have agreed to issue a response to DFI by the 15th of June. So happy to receive any comments that members wish to make today, or alternatively, if members want to put any comments in writing, if these can be submitted, and we will get a letter consultation response issued to DFI by the 15th of June. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Andre. Okay, members, that's open to yourselves. As Andre said, you can speak now, or indeed, if you want to submit any further thoughts, observations, then there is a short window of opportunity for you to do so. I don't see anyone in the chat box here at this point, so I'll give it a second. Okay, members, I'll move it on. Members, the next items 10, 11, 12, and 13 are open for information. If anybody wants to comment or ask questions, now's your chance. Okay, none. So can I have a proposal to move into confidential? Thank you, Councillor Mooney. Proposed, and can I have a seconder, please?
Second, the Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Dobbins. We'll just hold it for a second.